The LCS playoffs have kicked off with a banger series. C9 beat CLG, but it was pretty messy and it nearly went to 5 games. What does that mean for the match against Flyquest, who looked much better after their sweep of 100 Thieves? In the lower bracket, we had Golden Guardians continue the upset by eliminating 100 Thieves, but they faced a pretty tough matchup against a much better looking EG. We're going to talk about this on today's episode of The Gold Advantage. I'm your host, Nikita. With me is Big Money Blibs.
Hell yeah.
I think let's just dive straight into it. What did you think about Cloud9's matchup against CLG? I think that's the big match that we have to discuss.
I think that this is getting overblown.
Oh.
I think that Cloud9 is a good team.
Okay.
I think they may have overlooked CLG a little bit, and I'm not going to get overly concerned. I think CLG is a good team, but they're a team based on momentum. And I feel like they really kind of were feeling themselves against Cloud9, had a good scouting report, felt confident when they came into that game, and were damn near able to take it to 5 and maybe get the upset.
Yeah.
Then they kind of probably didn't really necessarily prep or train for the EG matchup. And this EG team, you know, you've mentioned it elsewhere on our beloved Discord, but this is an EG team that has been plagued through a number of different things, right? And, you know, some of them being health related, some of them being personnel related. But this is a team that was able to scout what they were doing against Cloud9. And this is a good EG team. I think that they've had some trouble throughout the split. But if you go back to the core of this team, it's a good EG team. I think that them kind of punishing CLG, CLG kind of was all over the place. And weren't even we're not able to execute on when they had the advantages, right? And I think EG was just really good fighting back.
I kind of want to focus more on Cloud9 just for now. I do want to get into EG a little bit later. I'm a bit surprised by that because when I'm looking at the Cloud9 and CLG series, Cloud9 did not look clean.
No.
They looked much worse.
Yep.
A lot of mistakes, a lot of messy fights, a lot of messy laning. It just was not clean. It was very poorly executed. A lot of the objective play was really poorly set up and executed. Yep. They came out with the win, but
should have lost the first game.
That win does not inspire confidence in Cloud9. Okay, is this Cloud9 not being good, or is this CLG being strong and pushing Cloud9 and creating, let's say, a chaotic game environment that...
Correct. That is what I'm saying. And, I knew the series was over when CLG, who should have been up 2-0, ended up only being 1-1, right? And that first game, if CLG was going to win this, they had to win that first game, especially the way that they started it off. To your point, it was sloppy. It was a bit all over the place. But that's kind of that is the CLG game style, right? They want you to...
I know, but that's not the Cloud9 game style. We'll get to the CLG issues in a second. But for me, I'm really focusing on Cloud9. They came out on top, first place. We've been singing their praises. Everyone's been saying how good they are. Then they go into playoffs, their first best of 5, and against what everyone thought would be, you know, the easier series. The bookies definitely did. All the lines were very skewed towards
We
Cloud9.
did not think that. We did not think that.
All the bookies were massively skewed.
Of course they were.
The general consensus that Cloud9 is going to make pretty easy work of this, and CLG might win one.
But this podcast did not believe that. This podcast believed only a -1.5. We believed in CLG, and I don't think you can talk about, and I know you keep wanting to go back to it, and I respect it, I don't think you can talk about this matchup for Cloud9 without only talking about CLG to a degree, right? Which, yes, Cloud9 is the better team, but CLG has a playing style. They want it messy. They want to be aggressive. They want to have kills. And for the first 2 games, Cloud9 fell into that. Now, I think after kind of taking a breath and kind of being guys, it's you do this all the time in sports. You play down to the level of your competition. I think they regained and then were able to kind of start to figure it out as we saw in maps 3 and 4. Mm-hmm. But I thought CLG executed their strategy and plan perfectly for them in order to have a chance to win it. And unfortunately, they just weren't able to get that first game. I think if they go up 2-0, much different series. But Cloud9, is and has been the best team for the majority of this split.
I don't know if I would agree with that. I wouldn't say the majority of the split. Like, for the first half of the split, Flyquest was without a doubt the best team.
But then who was the better team for the second half of the split?
Well, then we've got 50%, 50%.
And guess what? 50% is a majority.
50% is a majority?
Yeah, you can round up. It's how it works.
But then why don't you round up the first 50%? When Flyquest was the majority.
Because that doesn't serve my my talking point.
All right, fair enough. I think
it's more like 49-51. You know.
Okay, my takeaway from this is I see what you're saying, and I think it's a valid point until we look at the CLG EG matchup, and this has really a negative impact on the Cloud9. Like, so to me, if I believe your narrative, I'm like, okay, messy game, CLG a strong team, pushing Cloud9 and forcing them to play to their tempo.
Yep.
And I'm like, to be honest, when I was watching the game, I was not seeing a good Cloud9. So regardless of CLG, it was Cloud9, like I said, played very messily, did not look clean.
Agreed.
And that made me very nervous.
Yeah.
And then when I saw EG, CLG,
dismantle them.
Yeah. Exactly. And
they
EG dismantled them.
They weren't even trying to win the third game, and then they
still won it.
And they still won it.
Yeah, they still won it.
They were like, we're going to test out some stuff. We're not that threatened by this team.
We're gifting this to
they
CLG.
They were like, CLG, like, we're going to let you get ahead. Kill us a couple times.
They banned Malphite themselves. Yeah. Malphite had been such a strong top laner for them in the first two games, and then EG was like, okay, we'll ban this away from ourselves. And they still won that. And that's the thing. They absolutely dismantled it. FBI put on a masterclass performance. The amount of damage he was putting out, especially in Game 3, if you look at the fights, he's literally putting out more damage than the whole other team together. He was just a monster.
It was absurd.
And EG really, I think, showed the weaknesses. Like, they were punishing Luger anytime he wasn't in position. They were catching contracts out repeatedly.
Fucking Poom.
And punishing him so much. Poom and Contracts were caught out so many times in crucial dragon fights. But I mean, Contracts literally threw the game twice for them, where it's a crucial dragon soul.
It was so bad.
And he just walks solo.
Picked. Yeah, he get picked. It's like, hey, terrible. It's like, hey guys, we're all getting ready for Dragon. Cool, let me just wander to this brush, get picked, and then completely ruin any chance we have.
Yeah, and very much the thing I was most impressed by EG from their side is that their laning wasn't the best. Team fighting was so good. It was so good. But the problem is, EG still didn't look that great. They look much better than they were. Apparently, they've been dealing with some really severe illness over the past 3-4 weeks, which accounts for why they've dropped off. They've not been scrimming and so on.
Yep.
And I didn't mention this in the Discord, that, hey, be careful about jumping too hard on the CLG train. And I know you did. And it was unfortunate. But the thing is, though, EG made CLG look so bad, and CLG made themselves look so bad, that ergo facto, lorem ipsum, throw some more Latin words in here, Cloud9 looks even worse.
You're looking for some transitive property bullshit.
I am.
I'm not going to give it to you. So here's what I'll say.
Sorry, if Cloud9 struggles against a team that EG dismantles, that does not look good for Cloud9.
Here's what I'll say to you.
Okay.
Tell me. You are a C9 fanboy, and you're protecting yourself.
Oh, okay.
And I appreciate it. You are protecting yourself and giving yourself kind of like the reverse jinx. I love everything you're doing. The reality is CLG is only good for one best-of-5 series in a weekend. They showed up. They forgot that they'd have to play again when they were inevitably going to lose.
Well, they just knew they would win.
They thought they were going to win.
Yeah.
Exactly. Point being, CLG, I think they kind of got defeated. I'm not going to read too much into it against EG. I do like the way EG did play. But again, I'm not going to read too much into the way EG played against them, and I'm also not going to read too much into the way Cloud9 played against them.
So basically, you're just not reading. You're you're like,
I'm going to allow
full Florida. I'm not reading anything.
I don't read. Burn the books, ban the books.
Yeah. Right.
What I will do is rely on the entire body of work from the split to make these predictions for this upcoming weekend.
I don't know. You're only as good as your last match.
Well, and guess what? C9 won 3-1. Great. It's still a win. Sometimes sometimes you don't show up with your best game, and the fact that you still win in a convincing fashion of a -1.5
against a pretty bad team, it looks like.
No, they're not that bad. No, that is a misrepresentation.
They were bad.
They were bad. They were bad. No. See, this is the difference. They weren't bad on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, they were. No, they were.
They were bad on Sunday.
Well, no, I'm saying they were always bad. We were tricked into thinking they were good because we thought C9 was good. But C9 is not good. They were bad on Thursday, and they were even worse on the weekend.
I can't wait to clip. Please make sure you clip this for next weekend when C9 smashes Flyquest, and you're like, well, C9 were bad. C9...
That's what I'm saying here, is that it makes me even more nervous when I look over at Flyquest, who... And you were... And this is the thing, I'm not going to let you get away with this. You were on the 100 Thieves rocket train. You were like, these guys... And to be fair, look, hey, they had an 8-game win streak. They grabbed 3rd place. You were all about the upset. This match is going to 5. It is going to... So, again...
Totally.
Through our historical database, 100 Thieves is a much tougher opponent than CLG. Coming in against a much weaker opponent in Flyquest, who you were like, these guys might be out. These guys, if they drop down to the lower bracket and face off against CLG, that might be it for them. And lo and behold, no, they 3-0 sweep 100 Thieves. And they looked way better. They looked so much cleaner. Vickler still making a few mistakes, I'll give you that. But overall, it was just a 3-0 clean sweep. The whole team looked so coordinated, and they were punishing double lift so hard.
Yeah. So if you're going to sit here and try and tell me that CLG was a bad team this past weekend, there's no fucking way you can't say that 100 Thieves was an awful team this weekend. For them to lose
to exposed.
For them to lose to Golden Guardians, the way that they did was...
Yeah.
Fucking mind-blowing and, frankly, a bit embarrassing.
I don't want to get into 100 Thieves because I think it's a whole nother podcast, but I think these results this weekend, I think you and I are in agreement, it's a failure.
Correct.
Like, you have to look at it, it's 100% a failure, and then you need to start asking hard questions about Bjergsen and double lift because
I've been saying
this isn't it.
Yeah. I mean, getting spanked in that first game. What I will say, the reason I bring it up is based on what you just said.
Yeah.
The failure that was 100 Thieves this past weekend.
Yes.
I'm also not going to overreact to Flyquest coming in out of that game, right? If you're going to overreact to Cloud9, barely scraping by CLG, I think you should also then
No, but you're the one being inconsistent here. I'm consistent. And my consistency is I have one question for you. Okay. Who looked better in their win?
Cloud9 or Flyquest?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a different question?
No, you can't.
Who looked better in their loss? 100 Thieves or CLG?
100 Thieves. 100 Thieves.
What?
Sorry, which one got swept in the second series and which one went to 5 games and nearly won it?
I mean, you're playing EG versus GG. I know they've got G's in both names, but they're
nonetheless,
not the same.
I answered your question. Who looked stronger in their win? Who looked cleaner? Like
Flyquest, of
exactly,
course.
And that's all. That's it. Like forgetting about the other team.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think both of them not good.
Yeah.
I've said that. But forgetting about the other team,
sure.
Flyquest just looked much cleaner in their win and executed. Cloud9 looked really messy.
Agreed.
Yeah. There we go. All right.
Agreed.
That's it. Next topic. That's it. Okay. Next topic.
Next topic. Where are we going next?
I went GGEG. So I think we kind of already covered the Golden Guardians 100 Thieves. It was just, I think it was messy all over the place. Good. It was good. I'm happy for Golden Guardians to get the win because it's nice for that org, I think, to kind of come back into relevance. The storyline for Licorice getting dropped from Cloud9, struggling for a while, now doing well. I'm happy. I'm rooting for them. But it was a really, and I keep using the word messy because unfortunately that I think that is the word of the weekend. It was a messy series back and forth all over the place.
There are multiple games. I mean, like, you never see this in League of Legends where the winning team has fewer kills. But in multiple instances this weekend, you had this happening, right? You had it happen in Game 5 of 100 Thieves Golden Guardians. You had it happen in EG over 100 or over CLG.
Game 3.
Look, yep, and it never happens. So, to your point, I was rooting for Golden Guardians. Do I have 100 Thieves bias? Some people claim I do, even when I claim they're going to win it all. of course, then they naturally let me down, and so I do have a small bias against them. I'll sit here and admit it and own my biases.
Okay.
It was funny though. Every time, and I was in and out doing some things. Every time I turn it on, 100 Thieves would win. They just like smash
really?
Golden Guardians, and then every time I stopped watching, Golden Guardians would win. So I was just like, I just need to step back because after it went 2-2, it was too much for me to handle. So then I just went back and watched the VODs later. Like to your point, this Golden Guardians team, the perseverance to go down the way that they did in that game 5 and fight back and win, like that is something that you can take with you into the next weekend. And that is why, I mean, I know we'll get into the odds in a little bit, but like good on them. Very impressive. Yeah. Like honestly, like that's not something you really expect from a team like Golden Guardians. And on the flip side, you certainly don't expect 100 Thieves to fucking blow it and completely choke coming down the finish line. And so that was just incredibly surprising.
Just double lift. Like we said it. It's just it's a bit of a disaster. It absolutely was. Look, it was great. Like I said already, I think it was so good to see Licorice get that win, to have that Golden Guardians team win. And I know we typically focus on who's going to win the split, but I actually think this stuff really matters to the teams in that middle of the pack, the ones who are fighting for playoffs. Do they make it? For these players, that sort of confidence, and just those moments of like, hey, you know, we're still kind of relevant. We can still affect the playing field, and it's cool. It's nice to see when I like rooting not just for the number 1 place team, but for the other teams in these individual matches. So that was good. I think this is the perfect time. Like, I don't really have much else to say. I think we've covered all of them. Jumping into the matches.
Well, what I will say just about Golden Guardians going up against Evil Geniuses, who he has to play better. When he plays well, that team, he is the rock that team. I mean, when he plays well, the team wins. When he does not play well, that team flounders. And so, I'm going to be very intently watching his play and how he goes up against, you know, his competitor.
Well, look, let's reverse it, because I think that's a great way to open it up and saying that he is quite the key to things. I think on the flip side there, the key to EG, without a doubt, has been FBI. His team fighting has just been so impeccable.
Well, and
he's been doing so much work on not only people like Zeri, but like Aphelios. His Aphelios was deadly. And you've got to question, like, okay, well, do you ban that out? What are you banning, and how do you ban them out? And especially when you're looking over it, you know, they're using the Malphite to such success. They have a lot of pocket picks that they can pull out. I think JoJo's also looking much better now that he's recovered and back on the lineup.
Yep.
There's a lot of things there. And I know the books also agree with us here, because, you know, they are, they're favored. EG is massively favored at the moment. I'm just going to kick off with the match. Like, obviously, I think EG is going to beat Golden Guardians. Like I said, the odds are horrible. 2.8 money line for Golden Guardians, 1.38 on EG. So, really, you're looking at the individual match money lines, map money lines, and you can get EG at a 1.52. So, depending on draft, I would grab that. You can potentially get an upset. I'm definitely grabbing the -1.5 at 1.92 for EG.
Yeah.
I think you could sprinkle a unit on the -2.5 at 3.8, but I'm less confident in that. I think there's a chance that Golden Guardians grabs one match.
I think that it was a fantastic weekend for Golden Guardians to beat 100 Thieves, but we've already discussed I'm not going to be too smitten with them beating 100 Thieves based on this weekend. I do like the performance of EG. You're right, the odds are terrible. But like, even going back to the regular season, like, this is a team in EG that was struggling, right? They had some moments where they were struggling. They ended the split 0-3 that last Super Week, yet they were still 10-8, right? They still actually got 5th place and were better ranked than Golden Guardians. I'm with you. I think that the -2.5, like, I hear you being nervous. I mean, -1.5 at 1.92 feels like free money. Like, I'm ready to just jump all over that, but I'm even going to put a taste on the -2.5 because I do see this being rather one-sided.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that kind of wraps up. I will highlight some kill bets. You can get EG 4.5 minus 5.5 at like around a 1.83. It keeps swapping back and forth between the two. I think that's really good. A lot of their matches tend to be more bloody. I think I explained this before. A lot of the kill spreads tend to depend on the opposing team, on how much they're willing to fight over objectives if they're behind. The total kill line is at 24.5 right now. It's really hard. It seems to be across both of them. I'm not sure about that one because in both series, when you look at the previous matches, some were above like at 30 and some were at like 15. So it's really up and down. Maybe I would take them over 21 or 20.5 at a 1.7. But it's quite tricky. I much prefer the minus 4.5, minus 5.5 at a 1.83 for EG. I think that's really what's going to be good. You bet it across 3-4 maps. I think 3 of them will hit. 1 might not. You might hit all 3 if you get the minus 2.5 plus minus 1.5. And I think that tidies up that match. That's really the bets there. Much more interesting matchup is Cloud9 versus Flyquest. I think we're on opposing sides here. I'm very clearly Flyquest. I think Flyquest looked much cleaner in their win. I think it's undeniable. They were the number one team, actually. If we're actually looking at history and the books, if we're reading the books, the number one team for most of the regular season was Flyquest.
Who finished in first place?
They finished it, but for most of the split, they were the number one team. They brought in a new support midway through, so that messed things up, made things a little bit tricky. They seem to have found their groove. They just look much cleaner, so I'm all on the Flyquest train. You heard it previously at the start of this episode, so I'm not going to rehash what we've already discussed here. And the best thing is they're underdogs. So moneyline, Cloud9 is at 1.62, Flyquest is at a 2.15. I don't think you can argue the value there.
Yeah. You're not, as a value better, of course I'm not going to argue the value there. When you have yes, two teams that are this equally talented, that line should be 1.9 to 1.87 or something like that, right? The fact that you're getting 2.15 on a Flyquest team that is playing well and is this good, like that seems silly. During the split, during the season they split, so they were 1-1 against each other. Obviously, Cloud9 won the more recent version of that. Yep. And then they also won the tiebreaker, so kind of 2-1. So there's some recent developments that would suggest Cloud9 should win this. To your point, I'm not going to overreact. I think from a value perspective, 1.62 as a straight up moneyline bet is an awful bet. Like there's just no value there, and I would never do that. So for me, I'm going to be looking at things like over 4.5 maps, right? And so over 4.5 is 2.40. I think that this will go back and forth, be neck and neck. So that's kind of where I'm headed at. As far as like match handicaps, like I don't know, I don't think. I guess if I had to pick one way or the other, Cloud9 at a minus 1.5, but God, that feels risky. I don't love that either. And so,
I was gonna say that's where you have to take it if you're Cloud9. This is one that's so close. You got to see the drafts. You got to bet match to match. Minus 1.5 for Cloud9 is 2.35, but I actually don't have that highlighted. I have the opposite side because I believe Flyquest is going to win. Minus 1.5 is a 3.4. I think that's too good. It's 3.4. That is such a good line, and I can totally see this going 3-1. Especially with the way, if Cloud9 plays against Flyquest the way they played against CLG, it's a 3-0, it's a 3-1.
If you are a Cloud9 believer, do not bet the money line. I would just bet map 1, map 2, map 3, because the odds are also 1.72. They're better, right? They're better, maybe you can see what the draft is, especially, figure out what you're feeling there. I think that the only way for a match perspective to bet, you should be betting Flyquest. With that said, I believe from a belief perspective, I think Cloud9 will win this.
Well, we'll see that. And that kind of actually brings me... So I talked about the total kills bet line. So for Cloud9 for Flyquest, it's 25.5. As I mentioned before, in some of their matches against CLG, it was going to 30. So you would take that line. Other ones, though... With Flyquest, though, it was sometimes going at like 15. So it's up and down. I think these two teams will play
conservative to start.
It depends. I think if Flyquest is ahead, I think there's a lot of kills, and Cloud9 is going to fight back, because I don't think Cloud9 will go down without it. Whereas if Cloud9 is ahead, I think Flyquest is much more tempered in their response, and so I don't know that it is. So I'm not confident in that one. I love, and I cannot state this enough, I love the plus 4.5 kill handicap on Flyquest at 1.83. The thing is, if you think Cloud9's going to win, you take the minus 4.5. Yeah, it's entirely colored by that. Whatever you side you think is going to win, 1.83 on a minus 4.5 or plus 4.5 is absolutely worth it.
Can I push back? Look, I love the passion, with which, like, please, everyone out there, listen to Nikki, not me, on this. It feels like a sucker bet to me, because it feels like because I think, to your point, if you're a believer in Flyquest, just bet the Flyquest money line. You get better value, you get better odds. Like you just it feels better, right? And so I don't think you want to start dabbling with this plus 4.5, because if Cloud9 wins, I think kind of the opposite. I don't think it's gonna be that close. I think Cloud9's gonna kind of come in and punish them, and then be methodical.
I will admit this. I got zeroed in on the Flyquest.
Correct.
So if you bet individual maps,
it's 2-0.
It's a 2 times odds. So just take that. You're 100% right. Forget the plus 4.5 for them. However, if you're a Cloud9 fan and you think they're going to win, I think the minus 4.5 is, I would grab that basically right now. Because that will go up to, that will definitely move to minus 6, minus 7.5. And then you're getting into that shakier territory.
I agree with that. That I agree with.
Glad we can end on an agreement. I think we all agree this podcast is great and deserves a like, subscribe. And if you want to join us in the Discord to chat about playoffs,
why wouldn't you?
Especially in anticipation of MSI, or rub it in our face when we're wrong, link is just below.
Rarely.
We're on a ripper.
You know who's on a real ripper? Astralis, baby. 3-0.
Oh, yeah. I know. So in celebration of that, please like, subscribe, and tune in for the LEC episode later this week. Thank you, everyone, and bye.
Toodaloo.